One dark night, a millionaire made the unthinkable choice of abandoning his wheelchair-bound daughter and newborn baby in a secluded forest. He believed that by getting rid of them, he could finally move on with his life without ties. Years later, while watching TV, he came across an interview that left him paralyzed with shock. What his daughter revealed to the world made him deeply regret the cruel fate he chose for her. Get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, like this video and comment on where you are watching from. The sun was beginning to set behind the trees when Luca Muller's black car pulled up on the secluded road. The silence between father and daughter remained, tense with only the soft roar of the engine as a witness to what was about to happen. Sophia, just 10 years old, watched the landscape through the window, her small hands tightly gripping the arms of the wheelchair inside the adapted vehicle. "Why?" "Are we stopping here, Dad?" she asked in her innocent voice, as she swung her motionless legs covered by a colorful blanket that her mother had made before leaving during the birth of Amelia, her 3-month-old baby sister, who was sleeping peacefully in the baby carrier next to her. Luca took a deep breath. His impeccable suit and the gold watch on his wrist contrasted with the simplicity of that dirt road surrounded by dense forest. Her successful businessman, accustomed to making difficult decisions, he stared at the rearview mirror, avoiding his daughter's eyes. "I need to check something on the engine, Sophia. Wait here with your sister," he replied curtly. He got out of the car, walked slowly around and opened the back door. For an instant, his gaze met Sophia's, those same brown eyes of Elena, his late wife. The girl smiled confidently, never imagining that this would be the last moment she would see her father. Luca closed the door and got back behind the wheel. His hands shook slightly as he turned the key and accelerated, leaving his 2 daughters behind on the deserted road. In the rearview mirror, he watched Sophia's small silhouette shrink until it disappeared completely. "It's better this way," he muttered to himself, trying to push away the guilt that was already beginning to weigh on his shoulders. "They deserve a family that can give them what they need. I can't handle a special daughter and a newborn, not after losing Eleanor." On the road, Sophia stood paralyzed, not only by her physical condition, but by the shock of the reality that her childish mind struggled to process. The dust kicked up by her father's car was still hanging in the air when the realization finally hit her. She had been abandoned. "Father," he shouted repeatedly, his voice echoing through the empty forest. "Father, come back. You forgot us here." The minutes turned into hours. The sun had already set completely, leaving only the starry sky as a silent witness to that cruel abandonment. Sophia, protecting her sister with her own body, hummed a lullaby that her mother used to sing, trying to calm not only Amelia, who was crying from hunger, but also her own broken heart. It was at this moment of despair that an old truck appeared on the road. The yellow headlights illuminated the 2 girls, making Anita, who was in the passenger seat, jump in fright. "Eric, stop the car! There are children over there!" he exclaimed, pointing at the Muller. Eric immediately stopped the truck loaded with firewood. The couple, in their 50s, wore simple clothes and had hands calloused from hard work on their small farm. When they got out of the vehicle and approached, they were shocked by the sight. A child in a wheelchair holding a baby, both alone in the middle of nowhere. "My God, what happened, little one?" asked Anita, kneeling down next to Sophia. With tears streaming down her face, Sophia tried to explain, but her words came out broken by sobs. My father, he stopped here. He said he would come back. But..." Anita and Eric exchanged horrified looks, immediately understanding the situation. Without hesitation, Eric helped put Sophia and Amelia into the truck. "You're coming with us. No one is left abandoned on the road, least of all children," he stated with determination. Anita and Eric's house was simple but cozy. Located on the outskirts of the city, it was a small rural property with a flower garden at the entrance and chickens pecking around in the yard. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee and homemade bread filled the air, That night, after feeding the girls and improvising a bed, Anita sat next to Sophia, who was still shaking. "Can you tell me your full name, my dear, and your parents' names?" Sophia, calmer now that Emilia was sleeping peacefully, replied in a weak voice. "My name is Sophia Müller. My father is Luca Müller. He has a big company in the city. My mother's name was Eleanor, but she left when Emilia was born." Anita and Eric exchanged meaningful glances again. Luca Müller was well known in the region, a powerful and influential businessman. How could someone abandon their own daughters, especially one with special needs? "Tomorrow we'll try to find your father." "Sophia, there must be some mistake," Eric said, trying to sound optimistic, although deep down he suspected there was no mistake. But Sophia, with wisdom beyond her years, shook her head. "He's not coming back. I saw it in his eyes. He doesn't want to take care of us anymore." Her words fell like stones on the couple's hearts. Anita, who had always dreamed of having children but had never been able to, felt an immediate connection with those helpless children. "Then we'll take care of you," he declared firmly, taking Sophia's hand. The following days were spent adapting and discovering new things. Eric built ramps around the house to make it easier for Sophia to move around in her wheelchair. Anita learned how to take care of the baby and gave private lessons to Sophia, who was already showing great intelligence and talent for music. In the small room there was an old piano that had belonged to Anita's mother. Sophia, fascinated by the instrument, constantly asked to be placed on the bench. Her small hands, agile and delicate, glided over the keys with impressive ease. "She has a gift," Anita commented to Eric, watching in wonder as the girl played a soft melody. Meanwhile, across town in the Müller's luxurious mansion, Luca tried to move on with his life, immersing himself in business to drown out the guilt that was consuming him. In his office, he kept hidden a letter that Elena had written before giving birth to Emilia, a letter intended for Sophia, which he had never delivered. "It had to be this way," he repeated to himself, like a mantra as he stared at the photo of his daughters that he kept hidden in his desk drawer. "They'll be better off without me. I wouldn't know how to take care of them, give Sophia the attention she needs with her condition." But fate, with its relentless irony, had surprises in store for both Luca and Sophia. Music, which was beginning to blossom in the girl's heart like a balm for her emotional wounds, would be the invisible link that would one day reconnect them in unexpected ways. In the backyard of Anita and Eric's house, under the starry sky that night, Sophia began to compose her first song, transforming her pain into art, without imagining that years later, those same musical notes would reach the ears of the person who abandoned her. 7 years had passed since that fateful afternoon on the road. Time, relentless in its march, had transformed little Sophia into a 17-year-old teenager, whose brown eyes held a peculiar mix of maturity and dreams. Her wheelchair, now more modern thanks to the efforts of Eric and Anita, glided easily. Through the adapted rooms of the house, she had learned to call home. Dawn in the city brought with it the singing of birds and the aroma of fresh coffee that Anita was preparing in the kitchen. Sophia woke up early on that special morning. It was the day of her first musical performance at the school's cultural fair. "Good morning, my star," Anita greeted, pouring a glass of orange juice for the daughter that destiny had gifted her. "Nervous about today?" Sophia smiled, smoothing her brown hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders. "A little. But the music I composed is ready. I want everyone to feel what I feel when I play it." Emilia, now 7, came running into the kitchen, her golden curls bouncing with each step. Unlike her sister, she had her father's blue eyes, a detail that sometimes caused a silent tug at Sophia's heart. "Bella, can I go with you to the stage? I want to sing too," asked the little girl, who idolized her older sister and her musical talents. Sophia stroked her sister's hair affectionately. "Not today, little one, but I promise that at the next recital, we will be together." Eric, who came in through the back door carrying some tools, joined the family at the coffee table. "The car is ready to take our pianist. I put the keyboard in the trunk and checked the access ramp to the school auditorium," he said proudly. Sophia's eyes shone with gratitude. That simple family had spared no effort to support her musical dream. The piano lessons, which had begun as therapy after she had abandoned her, had become a true passion. At the other end of the city, Luca Müller was descending the marble stairs of his mansion, impeccably dressed in his Italian suit. At 52, he was the picture of business success, president of Müller Empreendimentos, one of the largest construction companies in the region. His empire had grown exponentially in recent years, as had the emptiness in his chest. "Sir, coffee is served," announced Marta, the housekeeper who had worked for him for decades, and Mr. Andreas Rossi called to confirm the meeting to discuss sponsorship of the Youth Music Festival. Luca nodded absently. The festival was just another marketing project to associate his company's name with culture and youth. Little did he know that fate was beginning to weave its invisible threads of reunion. The state school, the auditorium, was packed for the cultural fair. Parents, students, and teachers eagerly awaited the performances. Backstage, Sophia was breathing deeply, her hands trembling slightly on the wheels of her chair. "You're going to rock, Bella," encouraged Nora, her best friend since she arrived at that school. "That song you wrote is amazing." The music teacher, Donna Clara, approached with a kind smile. "Sophia Müller, it's your turn. Remember what I always say, let the music say what words can't." When Sophia appeared on stage, a brief silence fell over the auditorium. There was something magnetic about her presence. It wasn't just the wheelchair that set her apart, but the intensity of her gaze, her elegant posture despite her physical limitations. Positioned in front of the keyboard, she closed her eyes. For a moment, as if seeking inspiration from somewhere deep within herself. Then her fingers played the first notes of Estrada do Recomeço, the original composition that recounted, in melancholic chords that gradually turned into hopeful ones, her journey from abandonment to rebirth. The melody enveloped the audience, like an embrace. Different emotions were drawn on the audience's faces: surprise, admiration, emotion. When the last note echoed and Sophia finally opened her eyes, a respectful silence preceded the explosion of applause. Among those present was Andreas Rossi, a representative of Müller Empreendimentos, who had come to evaluate the talents for the festival sponsored by the company. Impressed, he approached Donna Clara after the presentation. "Who is that young pianist? She has extraordinary talent," he asked, still visibly moved by the performance. "Sophia Müller, one of our brightest students despite all the difficulties she faced," the teacher replied proudly. The surname made Andreas raise his eyebrows, but he didn't make the connection. Müller was a common surname after all. "I would like to invite her to participate in the Novos Talentos Festival, sponsored by Müller Empreendimentos. There is a category for composers that she would certainly dominate." Back at Anita and Eric's house, the celebration for the success of the show was interrupted by the arrival of Andreas, who personally brought the official invitation to the festival. The whole family listened attentively to the explanations about the event that would take place in 2 months. "It's a unique opportunity, Sophia," Andreas explained. "The winner will receive a scholarship to study music at the National Conservatory and a contract to record an EP with 5 original tracks." Sophia's eyes lit up at the prospect. It was her dream come true in the form of an opportunity. Anita and Eric exchanged worried glances. The sponsorship came from the company of the man who had abandoned his daughters. But how could they deny Sophia this chance? "I'm going to participate," the young woman decided, determined. "Music is my voice, my way of telling my story. I have to try." That night, while everyone was asleep, Sophia stayed up late composing a new song for the festival. Inspired by the moon shining through the window, her fingers danced across the keyboard, creating a melody that spoke of forgiveness, overcoming, and new beginnings. In her room, alone with her memories and dreams, she softly hummed verses that emerged from her heart. "On the empty road where they left me, I planted flowers of hope. My roots took hold in strange soil, but my branches reached the sky." In the Müller mansion, Luca tossed and turned restlessly in his king-size bed. Fragmented dreams haunted him. The face of Elena, his late wife, the look in Sophia's eyes when he abandoned her, the tears of Emilia, whom he had never really known. He woke up covered in sweat, guilt weighing like a tombstone on his chest. He walked to his office and opened the safe built into the wall. From there he took out Elena's letter, scanned shortly before she gave birth to Emilia, her last words which he had never had the courage to read in full. "Dear Luca," the letter began in Elena's delicate handwriting. "If you are reading this, it means that I did not survive childbirth. My last wish is that you love our daughters as deeply as I love them. Sophia, with her extraordinary strength despite her limitations, and this baby I have yet to meet, are the greatest gifts of our lives." Luca couldn't read any further. He closed the letter with trembling hands and put it back in the safe. He looked at his watch, 3 in the morning. In a few hours he would have an important meeting about the music festival he was sponsoring, a project that, unbeknownst to him, was about to reconnect him with the past he had tried to bury. The days that followed were full of intense work for Sophia. Between regular classes and rehearsals for the festival, she barely had time to rest. But each note composed, each melody perfected, brought her closer to her dream, and ironically, to the one who had abandoned her. The weeks leading up to the new talent festival were a whirlwind of rehearsals, compositional tweaks, and rising expectations. For Sophia, each day was a mix of anxiety and determination as she perfected the special piece she had composed for the occasion, Echoes of Silence, a powerful melody that carried in its notes all the unspoken emotions of the years. The Cultural Center, an imposing historic building in the heart of the city, had been chosen to host the event. Posters were placed everywhere advertising the festival, highlighting the generous sponsorship of Müller Empreendimentos. On one of them, near Sophia's school, a photo of Luca Müller smiled confidently, like a benefactor of local culture and youth. "It's strange, isn't it?" Nora commented as she and Sophia eyed the poster after a particularly grueling rehearsal. "You, participating in a festival sponsored by the man who... For the man who abandoned me," Sophia finished, her tone surprisingly calm. "Maybe it's fate bringing us together, or maybe it's just a cruel coincidence. Either way, I'm doing this for me, not him." At home, Anita helped Sophia choose her outfit for her performance. They chose an elegant and discreet navy blue dress, which contrasted perfectly with a silver necklace, a gift from Eric for her 16th birthday. "I'm proud of you, my daughter," Anita said, adjusting the fit of her dress. "Regardless of the outcome, you've already won just by transforming your pain into something so beautiful." Emilia, who was playing in her room, came over curiously. "Bella, when you win, can we buy a big piano to put in the living room?" Sophia smiled, touched by her sister's unwavering confidence. "If I win, Emilia, we'll think about it. But remember, there's a lot of talent at the festival." On the eve of the big day, Luca Müller met with his marketing team to finalize the event details. As president of the sponsoring company, his presence was essential for the opening and award ceremony. "Mr. Müller, we have the final list of 10 finalists," his assistant, Sandra, said. "They have sent their short biographies so that you can mention them in your inaugural address." Luca took the folder with obvious disinterest. Cultural events were not his passion, but his marketing department insisted that they were excellent for the company's image. "Any highlights I should know about in advance?" he asked, absently flipping through the pages. Sandra adjusted her glasses, consulting her notes. "Yes, there is a young pianist and composer who really impressed the judges in the preliminary round. Sophia Müller, 17 years old, wheelchair-bound. Her story of overcoming obstacles is already generating buzz in the local media." The name hit Luca like an electric shock. His face paled visibly, causing Sandra to interrupt her explanation. "Mr. Müller, are you feeling well?" Quickly composing. Himself, Luca coughed, hiding his discomfort. "Yes, just a momentary indisposition. Carry on. As I was saying, this young woman has a moving story. She was abandoned as a child and adopted by a farming couple. She developed her musical talent practically on her own until she managed to get a partial scholarship at the municipal music school." Each word was like a dagger in Luca's chest. The guilt that had never truly left him now returned with overwhelming force. His daughter, the one he had left behind on a highway, was about to perform at an event sponsored by his own company. "Have this girl investigated discreetly," he ordered his assistant when the others had already left the room. "I want to know everything about her before the festival." On the morning of the event, the cultural center was abuzz with activity. Technicians were fine-tuning the final details of the sound, judges were reviewing their notes, and the finalists arrived one by one, carrying their instruments and their hopes. Eric helped Sophia out of the converted van they had bought a few years ago, thanks to a raffle organized by the local community. Anita adjusted her daughter's dress, while Emilia skipped around, enchanted by the grandeur of the place. "Remember to take a deep breath before you start," advised Donna Clara, who had made a point of accompanying her most promising student. "Let the music flow naturally, as we always do in rehearsals." Backstage, Sophia met the other finalists. There were musicians from a variety of backgrounds, from a classical violinist to an alternative rock band. All were young, talented, and full of dreams. Despite the competition, the atmosphere was one of camaraderie and mutual respect. Meanwhile, in the dressing room reserved for the board of directors of Müller Empreendimentos, Luca received the confidential report on Sophia. His hands trembled as he confirmed what he already suspected. It really was his daughter, the same one he had abandoned on that road 7 years ago. The photos attached to the report showed a young woman of serene beauty, with the same expressive eyes as Elena. The detailed document also mentioned Emilia, the younger sister who was now 7 years old, and the couple, Anita and Eric, who had taken them in and raised them with love. "Sir, it's time for the opening speech," Sandra reminded, interrupting his tormented thoughts. With a heavy heart and a whirlwind of energy, Luca took the stage to deliver his inaugural address. Under the bright lights, his imposing figure contrasted with the inner turmoil he felt. His eyes scanned the audience until they settled on the front row, where a young woman in a wheelchair was watching him intently. It was a moment of mutual recognition, silent and devastating. Sophia did not look away. She stood firm, staring at the one who had once abandoned her. There was no hatred in her eyes, but an unshakable dignity that made Luca feel tiny despite his physical and social stature. The speech, previously memorized, came out of his lips mechanically. Words about opportunities for young talent, about the company's commitment to culture, sounded hollow in the face of that meeting of eyes full of untold history. Returning backstage after the speech, Luca felt overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation. He needed to talk to Sophia, to explain himself somehow, but how could he approach the daughter he had abandoned so cruelly? The performances began next. One by one, the finalists demonstrated their talents, receiving enthusiastic applause from the audience. Sophia would be the 8th to perform. When it was finally her turn, a respectful silence fell over the auditorium. Eric carefully positioned his wheelchair in front of the grand piano in the center of the stage. Sophia adjusted her microphone and took a deep breath before speaking. "Good evening. The song I'm going to perform is called Ecos do Silencio. I composed it thinking about how sometimes what we don't say echoes louder than our words. I dedicate this piece to my sister Emilia and my parents, Anita and Eric, who taught me that family is who welcomes us when we need it most." The direct mention of the adoptive parents did not go unnoticed by Luca, who was watching the presentation from a monitor backstage, unable to face the situation personally. The first chords of Sophia's composition were soft, almost hesitant, like the uncertain steps of a child. Gradually, the melody gained body and depth, transforming into a powerful musical narrative that spoke of abandonment, pain, acceptance, and finally, rebirth. Her hands danced across the keyboard with extraordinary fluidity, drawing from the instrument emotions that words could never fully express. In the audience, Anita and Eric could not hold back their tears. Emilia, although too young to fully understand the meaning of that song, remained mesmerized by her sister's performance. And backstage, Luca Müller, a powerful and feared businessman, let silent tears run down his face, hardened by the years. As the last note echoed through the auditorium, there was a moment of absolute silence, that precious moment when art touches so deeply that words fail. Then came the ovation. The entire audience rose to its feet in applause that seemed to have no end. Sophia, with a serene smile, thanked him with a slight bow of her head before being led backstage. In the hallway, an unexpected encounter awaited her. Luca Müller, standing in front of her, with the red eyes of someone who had recently cried. "Sophia," he said, his voice betraying restrained emotion. "I ask you," but before he could continue, Eric positioned himself protectively beside his adopted daughter. "I think you two need to talk," he said with surprising calm. "But today is not the time. Today is her day, her achievement, her talent. Let's not cloud that with ghosts from the past." Luca nodded, recognizing the wisdom in those words. "You're right, I just wanted to say, the performance was extraordinary." Sophia remained silent, her eyes studying the man in front of her, older with grey at his temples, carrying the weight of choices that could not be undone. "Thank you," she finally replied with dignity. "If you'll excuse me, I need to get back to watching the other finalists." The brief, tense encounter was merely the prelude to a story that was beginning to unfold. As Sophia returned to watch the rest of the festival, Luca stood motionless in the hallway, aware that the past he had tried to bury now demanded confrontation and redemption. The festival night ended with Sophia being announced as the big winner. The auditorium erupted in applause as her name echoed over the speakers, and the judges, unanimous in their decision, highlighted the emotional and technical depth of her composition. The crystal trophy in the shape of a musical note sparkled in her hands as she gave a short, emotional thank you into the microphone. "Music saved me when all seemed lost," Hannay said with a choked voice. "This award also belongs to my family, Anita, Eric, and Amelia, who gave me love when I needed it most, and to all those who face seemingly insurmountable challenges. Remember, our limitations can become our greatest strengths." In the audience, Anita and Eric couldn't hide their pride and emotion. Amelia jumped for joy, repeating to anyone who would listen, "This is my sister won." Backstage, Luca Müller watched the scene with a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Pride in his biological daughter's undeniable talent, shame at having been abandoned, jealousy of the family that had taken his place. As president of the sponsoring company, it was up to him to present the grand prize, a full scholarship to the National Conservatory and the contract to record the EP. When he took the stage for the award ceremony, his hands trembled slightly as he held the golden envelope. In front of the cameras and the audience, Luca and Sophia met again, now under spotlights that amplified every gesture, every look. "Congratulations, Mr. Anita Müller," he said formally, handing her the envelope. "Your talent is extraordinary." "Thank you, Mr. Müller," Sophia replied with equal formality, though her eyes conveyed messages that words could not express. It was a brief but tense moment. Father and daughter, connected by blood but separated by irreversible decisions, together amidst the applause of an audience unaware of the complexity of that encounter. At the reception that followed to celebrate the winners, Sophia was the center of attention. Local journalists interviewed her, other musicians congratulated her, and representatives from the conservatory were already discussing details about her enrollment for the next semester. In a far corner, Luca watched everything, unable to join in the celebration, but equally unable to leave. That was when Sandra, his assistant, approached with a worried expression. "Mr. Müller, I need to warn you. A reporter from the local newspaper is investigating a possible family connection between you and the festival winner. It seems someone leaked the information about, well, the relationship." The news hit Luca like a bucket of cold water. His greatest fear was coming true. The past he had tried to bury was now threatening to come to light publicly, putting his carefully built reputation at risk. "Find this reporter immediately," he ordered in a tense voice. "I want to speak with him in private." Meanwhile, across the room, Eric noticed the commotion around Luca. With years of life experience, the simple man had developed a keen sense for sensing trouble. He discreetly approached Sophia, who was chatting animatedly with Nora and other friends from school. "Daughter, I think we better go home. You've had an intense day, and you need to rest." Sophia noticed the concern in her adoptive father's eyes. "Did something happen, Dad?" Before Eric could respond, they were interrupted by Andreas Rossi, the representative of Müller Empreendimentos, who had discovered Sophia at the cultural fair. "Sophia, Mr. Müller would like to speak with you in private." "About the scholarship and the contract," she explained, giving Eric a meaningful look. "If it's convenient, of course." Eric hesitated, his protective instincts on high alert. "Sophia isn't going anywhere alone." "I understand perfectly," Andreas replied. "You may accompany her. It is just a formal conversation about the next steps." After exchanging glances with her adoptive father, Sophia nodded. "Okay, let's go. But my father is coming with me." They were led to a small meeting room adjacent to the main hall. Luca was already waiting for them, visibly tense, accompanied by Sandra, who was taking notes on her tablet. "Thank you for coming," Luca began, indicating the chairs for them to sit in. "Sandra, could you give us a few minutes alone?" The assistant seemed surprised, but promptly obeyed, leaving only Luca, Sophia, and Eric in the room, a complex family triangle, united and separated by time and choices. A heavy silence settled between them until Luca finally spoke, his voice lower and less confident than usual. "Sophia, first I want to formally congratulate you on your victory. It was well deserved. Your talent is extraordinary." "You already said that on stage," Sophia replied calmly. "I imagine you didn't call us here to repeat compliments." Luca took a deep breath, adjusting his tie as if he was looking for time to organize his thoughts. "No, it wasn't for that. The truth is that a journalist is investigating our relationship," he finally revealed. "The story may soon become public." Eric swallowed, his hand instinctively reaching for Sophia's for support. "And what's the problem?" Sophia asked, surprising both men with her directness. "Are you afraid that they'll find out that the respectable Luca Müller abandoned his own daughters on a deserted road? That one of them was special in need of care that you didn't want to give her? That he left a newborn baby to die?" Each word was like a precise arrow hitting Luca in the chest. He lowered his head without the strength to contest the harsh truth exposed by Sophia. "I have no excuse for what I did," he finally admitted. "After your mother left, I just broke down. I couldn't look at you without seeing Elena. I didn't feel capable of taking care of two children, especially one with different needs." "So you decided to get rid of the problem," Sophia added bluntly. "We're people, Mr. Müller. Emilia and I were your daughters, not problems to get rid of." Eric remained in respectful silence, allowing Sophia to conduct that long-awaited and necessary conversation. "I know," Luca replied, his voice barely audible. "There's not a day that goes by that I don't regret it. But by the time I realized the enormity of what I had done, it was too late. You were gone. I searched for weeks, but no one knew where you were." Eric cleared his throat, finally interjecting. "We didn't officially register the girls as our adopted children. We were afraid that you, with your power and money, might take them back without really wanting them. They needed stability, not more trauma." Luca nodded, acknowledging the wisdom of that decision. "You did what I didn't have the courage to do. You took care of them, you loved them, you gave them a real home." A new silence fell, less tense than the previous one, but equally significant. It was Sophia who broke it, her voice now softer. "Why did you decide to talk to us now? Is it just because of the impending scandal?" The question hit Luca at his most vulnerable point, his true motivation. "It would be easy to say no, that I finally found the courage to face my mistakes," she replied with surprising honesty. "But yes, the threat of scandal accelerated things. However, ever since I saw your name on the shortlist, something inside me knew this moment would come. That fate was reconnecting us for some reason." Sophia thought for a few moments, her fingers drumming gently on the arm of her wheelchair. "What exactly do you expect from me? To pretend nothing happened? To smile for the cameras like the proud daughter of the great Luca Müller, to deny the family that truly welcomed me? No, Luca replied promptly. I have no right to expect anything from you. I am here only to offer the truth before it leaks out in distorted form, and if you will allow me, to begin to make amends in some small way for the damage I have caused. Eric, ever sensible, intervened again. How do you intend to do that? Luca opened his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. First, I want to deliver something that belongs to Sophia. A letter Elena wrote to you before giving birth to Emilia. I've kept it all these years, another mistake I can't justify. Sophia's eyes widened at the mention of the mother she had barely known. Her hands shook slightly as she received the envelope with the elegant handwriting that simply read, "To my Sophia whenever you need me." As for the rest, Luca continued, I'm willing to do whatever you think is best. I can publicly acknowledge my daughters, admit my guilt, offer financial support to make up for all these years, without interfering in custody or family decisions, or I can remain anonymous if you prefer to keep your distance. The proposal. Hung in the air like a thick fog, Sophia looked at Eric, seeking advice in his wise eyes. This is your decision, daughter, said the man who had truly raised her. Whatever it is, your mother and I will support it. Sophia took a deep breath, aware of the weight of that moment. 7 years of unanswered questions, of silenced pain, now culminated in this crossroads. Her answer would define not only her future, but also that of Emilia, who grew up oblivious to the complexity of her own story. I need time, she said finally. I need to read my mother's letter, talk to Anita, and most of all think about Emilia. She's just a child. I need to protect her like I wasn't protected. Luca nodded, respecting the wisdom of the woman he had once abandoned, and who now seemed more mature than he himself had ever been. Time is something I can offer, he agreed. But know that regardless of your decision, I am ready to face the consequences of my actions. As they left the room, Sophia felt strangely light, as if an invisible weight had begun to lift. The truth, however painful, was finally coming to light, bringing with it the possibility, albeit remote, of a Karasusem. In the car on the way home, Eric watched Sophia's profile illuminated by the passing streetlights. Are you okay, daughter? With her mother's envelope safely in her lap, Sophia smiled serenely. You know, Dad, I think I'm going to stay. For the first time in 7 years, I feel like I can actually move on. Meanwhile, at the Müller mansion, Luca was facing his own true journey. It was time to reveal to Katarina, his current wife, the secrets he had kept hidden for so long, and the consequences that could forever change the life they had built together. The clock in the living room was almost midnight when Luca finally arrived home from the festival. The mansion was silent except for the soft sound of classical music coming from the master bedroom upstairs. Katarina, his wife of 5 years, was probably waiting for him up, as she often did when he had evening engagements. Katarina Mendonça. Müller, 38 years old, was the epitome of elegance. Her former international model, she had met Luca at a charity event and, after a brief courtship, they became the most envied couple in local high society. Without children, a choice she claimed to have made consciously due to her career, Katarina dedicated herself to social work and the luxurious life that her husband's money provided. What she didn't know, and Luca had never mentioned, was the existence of the 2 daughters from his first marriage. To Katarina, Elena had simply been Luca's first wife, who had died tragically in an accident, leaving no heirs, a convenient lie that now threatened to crumble. Luca climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. When he entered the room, he found Katarina reclining on the bed, reading a fashion magazine, her blonde hair perfectly styled, even at this hour. How was the festival? She asked without looking up from her magazine. Any talent worth noting? Luca took a deep breath, pouring himself a generous shot of whiskey from the small bar in the corner of the room. Katarina, we need to talk. Something in his voice made her finally look up. What's wrong? Trouble? At the company? No, nothing like that, he replied, sitting on the edge of the bed, far enough away to observe her reactions. It's about my past. There are things you don't know. For the next 30 minutes, Luca told her everything: Sophia's birth, her special condition, Emilia's difficult pregnancy, Elena's departure during labor, and finally, the abandonment of their daughters on that road. With each word, he watched Katerina's face change. Surprise, confusion, disbelief, and finally contempt. "You abandoned your own daughters?" she asked when he finished, her voice a mixture of shock and revulsion. "One of them in a wheelchair, and the other a newborn baby. And you kept it a secret all these years from me." "I have no excuses," he replied sincerely. "But now they have reappeared. Sophia won the festival today. She is an extraordinary pianist." Katerina stood up abruptly, walking to the window. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman torn between anger at the betrayal of the lie and horror at the action itself. "All those times we discussed having children," she said, almost to herself. "You said you didn't feel ready to be a father again after the tragedy with Elena. But the truth was, you already had daughters. Daughters you abandoned like they were trash." The rawness of that last word made Luca flinch. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "No, you don't," Katerina agreed, turning to face him. "But this isn't about you now. It's about them. What do you intend to do?" The question hung between them like a thick cloud. What Luca intended to do was precisely what had been tormenting him since the moment he had recognized Sophia on that stage. "I want to try to make amends," he said finally. "I don't expect to regain the role of father that I abandoned, but I want to offer them the support I should have given them all these years." Katerina studied her husband for long seconds, as if she were really seeing him for the first time. "You know this will destroy your public image when the story comes out, don't you? The abandonment, the lies all these years?" Luca nodded, resigned. "I'm prepared to face the consequences." A heavy silence settled between them, laden with unspoken words and confused feelings. Finally, Katerina reached for her silk robe. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. I need to process all of this." At the door, she paused and looked at the man she thought she knew. "I don't know if I can stay married to someone capable of what you did, Luca, but I know those girls deserve better than what they've gotten from you so far." Alone. In the room he once shared with his wife, Luca realized that the lies he had built to protect himself were crumbling, one by one, like a house of cards in the wind. So at Tanita and Eric's house, a very different scene was unfolding. Around the kitchen table, illuminated by the yellow light of the lamp, the family gathered to discuss the surprising events of the night. Emilia was already asleep, oblivious to the revelations that were shaking the family. Sophia held the letter from her birth mother, still closed, as if she feared what she might find inside. "You don't have to read it now, if you don't feel ready," Anita said gently, covering her daughter's hand with her own. "This has been a day full of emotions." Sophia looked at those who had been her real parents for the past 7 years. Eric's wrinkled face, marked by hard work and the sun, and Anita's kind eyes always transmitting unconditional love. They were simple people who had given her the most valuable thing they had, their hearts and their homes. "You are my family," he stated with conviction. "Whatever happens, whatever this letter contains, that will never change." Eric cleared his throat, overcome with emotion. "Daughter, we always knew this day would come, that your biological father would reappear. We never hid your story. We always spoke of Elena with affection. And we always tell the truth about the abandonment," Anita added, "because we believe you deserve to know who you were, where you came from." Sophia smiled through the tears that were beginning to form. "And that's why I know who I am. I'm Sophia Miller, daughter of Anita and Eric, sister of Emilia. The music I play, the person I've become, I owe it all to you." The moment was interrupted by the phone ringing. Eric answered, his expression turning to concern as he listened. "I see," he said finally. "Yes, she's here. One moment." Covering the mouthpiece, he explained, "It's a reporter from Journal Local. He wants to talk to you, Sophia. He said it's about your relationship with Luca Müller, and he has important information. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. The story was beginning to leak out just as Luca had predicted. With surprising calm for her 17 years, she reached out and picked up the phone. "Good evening, Sophia Müller speaking." On the other end of the line, the voice of Hugo Jensen, an investigative reporter known for his controversial stories, sounded strangely respectful. "Mr. Anita Müller, first of all, congratulations on winning the festival. Your performance was extraordinary." "Thank you," she replied dryly, "but I don't suppose you called at this hour to congratulate me." "Indeed," the reporter confirmed. "I have reliable information about your biological relationship with Luca Müller. I know about the abandonment, the circumstances, everything. I am preparing a story for tomorrow's edition." Sophia's heart raced, but her voice remained steady. "Are you calling to confirm the facts, or to warn me that you're going to expose a story that doesn't belong to you?" The direct question seemed to surprise the reporter. "To be honest, for both of us, I believe the public has a right to the truth about one of the most influential businessmen in the region. But I also believe that you, as the most affected party in this story, deserve to know what comes out." Sophia reflected for a moment, exchanging glances with Anita and Eric, who followed the conversation in tense silence. "Mr. Jensen, this story involves not only me but also my younger sister, who is only 7 years old and has no memory of what happened. Before you expose all of this, have you considered the impact it will have on her life, on our lives?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. When the reporter spoke again, his voice had a different, more measured tone. "I confess that I did not fully consider this aspect." Sophia took a deep breath, making a decision that surprised even herself. "I propose something. Meet me tomorrow at 10 in the morning at the cafe near the Municipal Theatre. We will talk. I will give my version of the facts. I will answer your questions. In return, I ask only that you do not publish anything until I have had a chance to prepare my sister for what is to come." After a moment of hesitation, the reporter agreed. "Deal done. See you tomorrow, Mr. Anita Müller." When she hung up, Sophia met the worried looks of her adoptive parents. "Are you sure about this, daughter?" Anita asked. "Once the story becomes public—" "I have no choice," he replied with a maturity that often surprised those around him. "If we try to stop it, it will look like we have something to hide. Better to face the truth on our own terms." Eric nodded, proud of the daughter they had raised. "We'll be with you every step of the way." Sophia picked up her mother's letter again, which she had left on the table. "I think it's time to read what my mother wanted to tell me. Whatever it is, I need to face my past in order to move forward." With trembling fingers, she carefully opened the envelope, preserved all those years. The paper had a faint scent, as if it held a bit of the essence of whoever had written it. The delicate handwriting danced across the lines, carrying words that had crossed time to finally reach her. "My dearest Sophia," the letter began. "If you are reading these words, it means that I am no longer physically with you. But I want you to know that my love for you transcends any barrier, even that of absence." Tears began to stream down Sophia's face as she read the words of a mother she had barely met, but whose love was immortalized in that letter. Elena spoke of how she had admired her daughter's strength since she was little, how she believed in her unlimited potential despite her physical limitations, and how she dreamed of seeing her transform the world with her gifts. The last lines, however, were the ones that touched his heart the most. "I trust that your father will take care of you and your sister or brother, who is on the way. Luca may seem strong and unyielding, but I know that deep down he has a heart capable of loving immensely. If at some point he fails, as we all humans do, remember that forgiveness is not only a gift we give to others, but also to ourselves. Free yourself from the weight of resentment, my little warrior, and fly as high as your dreams allow. With eternal love, Mommy." The silence in the kitchen was broken only by Sophia's restrained sobs. Anita and Eric, respecting that intimate moment, remained in supportive silence, their own tears bearing witness to the shared emotion. She believed in him, Sophia whispered finally. She trusted him to take care of us. Eric walked over, placing a comforting hand on his daughter's shoulder. Your mother couldn't have foreseen what would happen. She saw the best in him, as we often do with those we love. Sophia carefully folded the letter, putting it back in the envelope. A serene expression replaced the pain on her face. Tomorrow, when I meet the reporter, I don't just want to tell the story of abandonment. I want to talk about acceptance, about how you saved me, about how music gave me a voice when I felt silenced. I don't want to be defined by what I lost, but by what I found afterwards. That night marked a turning point not only for Sophia, but for everyone involved in that complex web of relationships. As the young pianist finally found answers to questions she had carried for years, new ones arose about forgiveness, redemption, and the true nature of family bonds. At the Mueller mansion, Luca contemplated the possibility of losing everything he had built, his reputation, his marriage, his business empire. But for the first time in 7 years, he felt strangely at peace with the prospect of facing the truth, no matter how painful it might be. And on the horizon, invisible but inevitable, the moment approached when Emilia, little Emilia, would discover that her family's history was much more complex than she had ever imagined, and that the man she had seen handing her sister a trophy was, in fact, the father she had never known. The coffee shop near the Municipal Theatre was bustling with activity that Saturday morning. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the cozy space, while lively conversations created a constant buzz. At a table farther away, near the window overlooking the square, Sophia waited for reporter Hugo Jensen. Eric remained discreetly at a nearby table, respecting his daughter's wish to conduct the conversation alone, but present in case she needed support. At 10 o'clock sharp, Hugo arrived. He was a man in his 40s, serious-looking and professional. He was wearing a simple blazer over a blue shirt, carrying a leather briefcase and a small tape recorder. "Thank you for having me, Mr. Anita Müller," he said as he sat down. "Can I record our conversation?" Sophia nodded. "As long as nothing is published before agreed." Hugo turned on the recorder and placed it on the table. "So, where would you like to start?" "Actually," Sophia replied simply, "yes, Luca Müller is my biological father. Yes, he abandoned me, my sister Emilia and I, on a road 7 years ago, after our mother left us in childbirth. And yes, we were found and raised by Anita and Eric Fargo, who became our true family." The reporter took notes as she spoke, his expression neutral, but his eyes revealed surprise at the young woman's frankness. "Did you just meet him again yesterday at the festival?" "Yes. Although I knew his company was the sponsor, I never imagined that we would meet face to face." The conversation flowed for nearly 2 hours. Sophia shared her story, discovering music as an emotional refuge, the challenges of growing up with a physical disability, her special sisterhood with Emilia, and the adoptive parents who turned a tragedy into a new beginning. "Mr. Anita Müller, many people in your place would be consumed by anger or a desire for revenge. However, you seem incredibly centered. How do you manage to deal with all of this?" Sophia thought for a moment, her eyes fixed on the cup of tea cooling in front of her. "Music has taught me that sometimes the most beautiful notes come after moments of silence and tension," he finally replied. "I won't deny that I've felt anger, sadness, and abandonment, but I've also learned that carrying that weight around would only stop me from moving forward. Besides," he added with a slight smile, "yesterday I read a letter my birth mother wrote before she passed away. She spoke of forgiveness and liberation, words that seemed to have reached me through time exactly when I needed to hear them." Hugo turned off the recorder, signaling that the formal interview was over. His professional expression gave way to a genuinely touched expression. "Sophia, as a journalist, I have covered many impactful stories, but I confess that yours, the way you transformed such a painful experience into something beautiful, makes me rethink how to approach this story." "I am not asking you to spare Luca Müller, or to hide what he did," Sophia clarified. "The truth needs to be known. I'm only asking for time to prepare my sister and for the focus not only to be on the abandonment, but also on the rebirth that came after. They parted with an agreement. The story would be published in Tuesday's edition, giving Sophia the weekend to talk to Emilia. The reporter promised to send her a preview of the story so she could check for anything that might unnecessarily hurt the little girl. As Sophia and Eric left the cafe, they failed to notice the elegant figure watching them from a car parked across the street. Katharina Müller, who after a sleepless night had decided to find out for herself who the stepdaughter she never knew existed was. At the Müller mansion, Luca was facing a tense morning. Katharina had left early without saying where she was going, leaving only a cold note saying that she would return for lunch and hoped to continue the pending conversation. His cell phone rang incessantly with calls from Andreas Rossi, alarmed by rumors that an investigative reporter was investigating details about the businessman's personal life. When the doorbell rang, Luca jumped. He wasn't expecting any visitors. Marta, the housekeeper, announced in surprise, "Sir, there is a young lady named Sophia who wishes to see you." The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Luca rose from his office chair, his heart racing. "Ask him to come in, Marta. And please, don't interrupt us." Sophia entered the luxurious office, her wheelchair gliding silently across the Persian carpet. She was not alone. Eric was with her, a silent, protective presence, standing near the door. "I didn't expect to see you so soon," Luca admitted, indicating a space for her to position her chair. "We need to talk about the article that's coming out in the paper," Sophia explained directly. "I just met with reporter Hugo Jensen." Luca paled. "Is he going to publish the story?" "On Tuesday. I took this time to prepare Emilia, and so that we can all decide how to deal with what comes next." The businessman slumped in his chair, reality finally hitting him full force. "I see. What did you say to him?" "The truth," he replied simply. "About abandonment, about Anita and Eric, about how I found in music a way to express my feelings." A heavy silence settled over the office, broken only by the ticking of the antique clock on the mantelpiece. Luca studied his biological daughter's face, searching for signs of anger or resentment, but finding only a disconcerting serenity. "You read your mother's letter," he observed, noticing the subtle change in Sophia's expression. "Yes. Elena believed you would take care of us. She saw something in you that in that moment of despair you yourself failed to see." The words hit Luca like a physical blow. He lowered his eyes, unable to meet Sophia's direct gaze. "I failed her." "I failed you. There's no way to erase that." "No, there isn't," Sophia agreed. "The past is the past. The question is, what do we do now?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Eric, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke up. "Sophia believes that Emilia deserves to know the truth about her origins, and that you, as her biological father, should be there when that happens." Luca looked up, surprised by the proposal. "You want me to meet Emilia, to be part of this moment?" "I want you to take responsibility for what you did," Sophia replied firmly. "Not so that you can be punished, but so that we can all move forward without the shadows of the past. Emilia has the right to know her full story, no matter how painful it may be." At that moment, the office door opened abruptly. Katharina walked in, her face marked by unshed tears and determination. "I saw her leaving the cafeteria," he explained quickly, addressing Sophia. "I followed you here because I needed to see it for myself." Luca stood up, alarmed. "Katharina, you shouldn't—" "Shouldn't I what, Luca? Meet your daughter, the one you've been hiding from me all these years?" Turning to Sophia, he continued, "Forgive me for intruding. I'm Katharina Müller, Luca's wife of 5 years. Until last night I didn't know you two existed." Sophia studied the elegant woman before her, the stepmother she never knew she had. "There's nothing to forgive. You were deceived too, in a way." Katharina stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Sophia with an almost painful intensity. "You have her eyes, Elena's. I used to see her picture on Luca's nightstand. before he removed it when we got married. The revelation surprised Sophia. So her biological father, despite everything, had maintained a connection with her mother's memory. Mrs. Muller, Eric interjected politely. We are discussing how to tell the truth to Emilia, Sophia's younger sister. Perhaps you, as part of this family now, would like to participate in this conversation. The question seemed to disorient Katerina for a moment. She looked at her husband, then at the stepdaughter she had just discovered, and finally at Eric, the man who had taken on the role her husband had abandoned. I don't know if I have that right, he admitted with surprising sincerity. But if Sophia doesn't object, yes, I would like to help in some way. Sophia nodded, recognizing the genuine concern in her stepmother's eyes. I thought we could tell Emilia. Tomorrow on Sunday, at our house where she feels safe and comfortable. If you could come over for lunch, perhaps that would be the right time. The proposal left Luca visibly moved. You would invite us to your home, after everything? I'm not doing this for you, Sophia clarified. I'm doing it for Emilia, for myself, and for the memory of my mother, who believed in the power of forgiveness. Eric stepped closer, placing a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. Anita has already agreed. She thinks we all deserve the chance to heal old wounds, especially children, who have been most affected by decisions they didn't make. Katerina, who had been watching the interaction with teary eyes until then, turned to Luca. I think we owe it to them, Luca. We owe it to these girls, to Elena, and to ourselves. It's time to do what's right, no matter how hard it is. Luca nodded slowly, the reality of being reunited with Emilia, the daughter he had abandoned when she was just a baby, finally sinking in. We'll be there, he promised. And thank you, Sophia, for this opportunity that I don't deserve. Sophia smiled slightly, without joy, but also without bitterness. Like I said, I'm not doing this for you, but perhaps in time we can all find some kind of peace with the past. As they left the Müller mansion, Eric watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Are you sure about this, Bella? It's a big change for everyone, especially Emilia. Sophia looked up at the clear sky that Saturday morning, feeling a weight begin to lift from her shoulders. Remember when they found me on that road? You told me that no one deserves to be abandoned. I think that, in a way, Luca is also lost. On his own road, we can't erase what he did, but we can choose not to perpetuate the cycle of pain. On the way home, Sophia asked to stop at the music studio, where she occasionally rehearsed. She needed to play, to let the notes express the whirlwind of emotions that words could not adequately capture. Eric waited patiently while she composed a new piece, a melody that spoke of encounters and separations, of open wounds, and the possibility, however remote, of healing. Sunday dawned with a radiant sun, as if nature itself conspired to make the day special. At the Fargo house, Anita was busy preparing an elaborate lunch in the kitchen, while Eric was setting the living room table with the best tablecloth and the cutlery they rarely used. Emilia, curious about all the unusual activity, was hopping around the house asking questions. Why are we cleaning the house so much? Who's going to come have lunch with us? Sophia, who was arranging her scores on the shelf to show the new composition, later took a deep breath. We're going to receive special visitors, Emilia. People who are part of our history. The girl tilted her head, puzzled. Are they our relatives? In a way, yes, Sophia replied, exchanging glances with Anita, who entered the room carrying a flower arrangement for the table. We'll explain everything during lunch, I promise. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Eric opened the door to find Luca and Katerina Müller, both visibly tense and formally dressed, as if they were attending an important social event rather than a family lunch. Welcome, Eric said with a genuine warmth that surprised even himself. Please come in. The Fargo's simple but cozy home was a stark contrast to the Müllers' lavish mansion. Family photos adorned the walls. Sophia at her elementary school graduation, Emilia on her first day of school, the four of them together on a picnic in the park. It was a portrait of an ordinary family, united by love rather than blood. Luca held a large package which he shyly offered to Eric. It's a professional keyboard for Sophia to continue developing her talent. The gesture, though well-intentioned, created an awkward moment. The gift was obviously expensive, more than the Fargos could afford, and seemed like a reminder of the social disparity between the two families. It was Anita who broke the awkward silence, entering the room with a welcoming smile. "Thank you for the gift. Sophia will appreciate it, I'm sure. Please have a seat. Emilia is getting ready and will be right there." Voices lowered automatically, as if everyone was aware of the importance of the approaching moment. Sophia positioned her chair close to the sofa where Luca and Katerina sat, creating an intimate semicircle for the conversation to come. "How are we going to do this?" Luca asked quietly, visibly nervous. "I'll start," Sophia replied. "I've talked to Emilia about our biological mother before. She knows that Elena left us when she was born and that we were adopted by Anita and Eric. She just doesn't know about you, about the abandonment." At that moment, light footsteps were heard in the hallway. Emilia entered the room, wearing her favorite blue polka-dot dress and a flower tiara in her golden hair. She stopped briefly when she saw the unfamiliar visitors, her expression curious. "Hi," she greeted shyly, approaching Sophia to hold her hand, as she always did when she felt insecure. Luca froze in front of the image of his youngest daughter. Emilia was the spitting image of Elena, the same blue eyes, the same shy smile, the same golden curls framing an angelic face. It was like seeing a ghost from the past, a second chance materialized before him. "Emilia," Sophia began softly, taking her sister's hand. "Remember the stories I told you about our mother, about how she loved us so much but had to leave when you were born?" The girl nodded seriously. "She's in heaven, watching over us, just like in the stories." "That's right," he confirmed with a gentle smile. "Today I want to tell you something important about our family, something you have a right to know now that you're growing up." Everyone's eyes in the room were fixed on little Emilia, who looked at her sister with absolute trust. The moment of truth had arrived, carrying with it the potential to heal or to open new wounds, and one way or another, nothing would be the same again. "Emilia," Sophia continued, choosing each word carefully, "when our mother left, it was just the two of us with our biological father, Luca." The little girl's eyes widened in surprise, instinctively turning to Eric, the only father she had ever known. "But Daddy Eric and Anita took us in later," Sophia explained softly. "They became our parents at heart, the family we chose and who chose us. But before that, we had another father." Emilia processed the information slowly, her curious gaze roaming the room until it landed on Luca, who remained tense on the couch. "Is that him? Is he our first father?" The silence that followed was almost palpable. Sophia nodded gently. "Yes, Emilia, this is Luca Müller, our biological father." The girl studied Luca for long seconds, her expression a mix of confusion and curiosity. "Why don't you live with us? Why have you never come to visit us?" The innocent question struck Luca like a well-aimed arrow. The answers he had rehearsed the night before disappeared before those blue eyes that demanded the truth. He felt Katerina's hand squeeze his in silent support. "Emilia," Anita interjected delicately, "sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes. When your mother left, your biological father couldn't handle the pain and responsibility." "No," Luca interrupted, straightening up on the couch. "She deserves to hear it from me." Everyone watched him as he stood up, and in a gesture that surprised even himself, knelt in front of little Emilia, getting to eye level with her. "Emilia, when your mother left us, I did something terrible, something I regret every day. I left you and your sister alone on a road. I abandoned you when you needed me most." The raw honesty of that confession left everyone in shock. No one expected Luca to be so direct with a 7-year-old. But, surprisingly, Emilia didn't cry or show anger. She tilted her head as she always did when trying to understand something complex. "Were you very sad?" he asked with an insight that bordered on wisdom. Luca swallowed, tears forming in his eyes. Yes, I was. But that doesn't justify what I did. Nothing justifies abandoning two children, especially your own daughters. Emilia thought for a moment, then looked at Eric and Anita. But Daddy Eric and Mommy Anita found us, they took care of us. Yes, Luca confirmed, his voice breaking. You were very lucky. They are extraordinary people who gave you the love and care that I should have given you. The little girl then turned to Sophia, seeking confirmation. Is that why you write sad songs sometimes? Because you missed our first mother and because our first father left? Sophia couldn't hold back her tears at that innocent and profound realization. Yes, Emilia, music helped me express feelings that are sometimes difficult to talk about. A contemplative silence fell over the group. It was Emilia who broke it, with the direct simplicity that only children possess. Are you leaving again? He asked Luca. The question echoed through the room like a plea that transcended the present moment. Luca shook his head firmly. No, Emilia, I'm not leaving. I know I can't go back in time and fix what I did. I know Eric and Anita are your real parents now. They've earned that title with their love and dedication. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be a part of your lives in some way, to really get to know you. Emilia considered his words with surprising seriousness for her age. Then, in a gesture no one could have predicted, she reached out and touched Luca's face, where silent tears now flowed freely. Don't cry, he said softly. Bella always says it's good when people admit their mistakes. It's like when I broke Mommy Anita's vase and told the truth instead of lying. The innocent comment brought heartfelt smiles to everyone present. Children's capacity for forgiveness, their natural ability to see beyond hurts and see possibilities for a new beginning, was a powerful lesson for the adults in the room. Anita, always sensitive to moments of emotional tension, stood up with a gentle smile. Lunch is ready. Why don't we continue this conversation at the table? I'm sure everyone is hungry. Lunch passed surprisingly smoothly, with Emilia doing most of the talking, excitedly recounting her adventures at school, her ballet lessons, and her favorite cartoons. The childlike innocence acted as a balm for the raw emotions of the adults present. After dessert, while Anita and Katerina chatted in the kitchen, an unlikely pair brought together by circumstances, and Eric showed Luca the backyard, Sophia took Emilia to her room. What did you think about meeting our biological father? He asked gently, helping his sister sit on the bed next to him. Emilia pondered for a moment, swinging her little legs in the air. He looked sad and regretful, like you said people do when they do something bad. Yes, he is, Sophia agreed. What happened was very difficult for all of us. But you know what I learned from all of this? That sometimes bad things lead us to places where we find good things. How to find Mommy Anita and Daddy Eric? Asked Emilia, understanding the concept. Exactly. And how to discover music, which became so important to me. Emilia hugged her sister impulsively. I'm glad we have so many parents now. That means we have more people to love us, doesn't it? The profound simplicity of that conclusion left Sophia speechless. She hugged her sister tightly, amazed at her ability to transform a complex situation into something so clear and positive. Back in the living room, Luca and Katerina were preparing to leave. The businessman looked different, less imposing, more human, as if the weight he had carried for years had begun to lift. Thank you for today, he said sincerely to Eric and Anita. What you did for my daughters, there are not enough words to express my gratitude. Eric nodded, his face lined with years of hard work softened by a faint smile. They are our children of the heart now, but there is room for more love in their lives. The story will come out on Tuesday, Sophia reminded, approaching with Emilia. Are we ready for it? I'm holding a press conference tomorrow, Luca replied with renewed determination. I'm going to publicly own up to what I've done and apologize. I don't want you to be exposed any more than necessary. Katerina, who had been relatively quiet during the visit, finally spoke up. I'd like to invite you all to dinner at our home next week. I know this is just the beginning, but maybe we can build a new kind of family, one that respects the past without being defined by it. The invitation hung in the air like a peace offering, a symbol of new possibilities. Anita exchanged glances with Eric, then with Sophia, who nodded slightly. "We will be honored," Anita replied for everyone. When Luca and Katerina finally left, a contemplative silence fell over the Fargo household. Emilia had gone to play in the backyard, seemingly processing the day's revelations in her own way, through imagination and play. "How are you feeling?" Eric asked Sophia, sitting down next to his daughter on the couch. "Strangely peaceful," she replied after a moment's thought, as if one cycle were closing and another could begin. Anita joined them, holding both of their hands. "Family is not just blood. It's a daily choice. It's permanence. It's unconditional love. That will never change no matter what happens." Sophia smiled, feeling truly blessed to have found amidst the tragedy of abandonment the true meaning of family. 3 months later. The National Conservatory shone under the late afternoon sun. In the large auditorium, packed to the last row, the audience anxiously awaited the recital of the new scholarship students. Backstage, Sophia adjusted the long silver dress she had chosen for her first official performance as a student at the prestigious conservatory. Her nervousness was palpable, but different from previous recitals. It was a positive anxiety full of expectations and dreams. "5 minutes until your entrance, Mr. Anita Müller," warned one of the organizers. Sophia took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment to focus. When she opened them again, she smiled as she saw her entire family approaching. Anita and Eric, Emilia bouncing around in a blue dress, and a little further away, Luca and Katerina, still adjusting to this new role in her life. "We came to wish you good luck," said Anita, hugging her affectionately. "You're going to rock as always," Eric encouraged, his pride evident in his eyes. Emilia handed him a small flower she had picked from the conservatory garden. "For luck." Luca approached timidly, still unsure of his place in this family circle. "Sophia, before you come in, I wanted you to know, Elena would be immensely proud of you today." The mention of her biological mother, so rare for Luca, touched Sophia deeply. "Thank you for saying that." "It's a new composition of yours, isn't it?" asked Katerina, who in recent weeks had shown genuine interest in her stepdaughter's musical talent. Sophia nodded. "Travessia dos Sonhos. I composed it thinking about all the paths that brought me here. The losses, the encounters, the missed encounters, and the new beginnings." The announcement over the PA system indicated that it was time for them to enter. The family moved away, heading for the reserved seats in the front row. Sophia took another deep breath and guided her wheelchair toward the stage. Standing in the spotlight before the majestic grand piano, she gazed for a moment at the silent audience. There were hundreds of unfamiliar faces, but in the front row were the people who gave meaning to her journey, her unlikely family, built not on convention but on love and forgiveness. His hands rested gently on the keys, and the first notes of Travessia dos Sonhos filled the auditorium. The melody began melancholy, almost hesitant, representing the first years after abandonment. Gradually, it transformed into something more complex, layers of harmony that spoke of discovery, growth, and overcoming. In the audience, Anita and Eric held each other's hands, moved as they recognized in the notes the story they shared. Emilia watched in fascination, swaying slightly to the rhythm of the music. Luca, with tears in his eyes, felt each note as a reminder of the lost years and the extraordinary resilience of the daughter he had abandoned. Katerina, at his side, offered silent support, having found within herself a surprising capacity to embrace this new expanded family. The composition reached its climax, a moment of pure emotional intensity that perfectly captured Sophia's journey. The notes flowed with stunning assurance, her hands dancing across the keyboard as if in intimate conversation with the instrument. And then, just as the music seemed to reach its climax, there was a pause, a moment of deliberate silence that left the audience in suspense. It was in that moment of silence that Sophia looked up at her family in the front row. Her serene smile lit her face before her fingers returned to the keys for the final chords, a harmonious and hopeful sequence that spoke not of an ending, but of a new beginning. As the last note echoed through the auditorium, there was a moment of reverent silence before the audience erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, applauding this extraordinary young woman whose music transcended physical limitations and transformed pain into beauty. Critics in attendance were buzzing about the new student's exceptional talent. "There's something about her music that goes beyond technique," commented a renowned professor at the conservatory. "She plays with her soul, with lived experiences that give depth to each note." After the recital, in the conservatory's elegant lobby, Sophia was the center of attention, receiving congratulations from impressed teachers and classmates. But her eyes were only on her family, who were waiting patiently in a corner. "It was beautiful, daughter," said Anita, hugging her emotionally. "You managed to express so many feelings through music." Eric, a man of few words but deep emotions, simply held her hand tightly. "We are all very proud of you." "Will I ever play as well as you?" Emilia asked, her eyes shining with admiration for her sister. Sophia smiled, stroking her sister's hair. "You'll find your own path, Emilia. Maybe it's music, maybe something else. The important thing is to follow your heart." Luca approached hesitantly, still aware of the invisible but real boundaries that existed between them. "Sophia, your presentation was transcendental. Thank you for allowing us to be part of this moment. Music has always been my way of expressing what words cannot," she replied calmly, "including the process of forgiveness, which is more of a journey than a destination." Katerina, who had been watching the interaction sensitively, suggested, "How about we celebrate with a special dinner? There's a wonderful restaurant nearby." The proposal was received with enthusiasm by everyone, especially by Emilia, who loved festive occasions. As the unusual group headed for the exit, Anita and Eric side by side, Emilia skipping between them, Luca and Katerina following a few steps behind, and Sophia steering her wheelchair with the confidence of someone who knows her way precisely. A cultural reporter approached discreetly. "Mr. Anita Müller, your story has inspired many people since it was made public. The overcoming, the forgiveness, the reconciliation between families. Are there any plans to turn all of this into a book or documentary?" Sophia smiled, exchanging meaningful glances with everyone who now formed her expanded family. "For now, I prefer my music to tell my story. Some chapters are still being written, new chords being discovered. The journey continues." As they left the conservatory, the sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Sophia took a deep breath of the approaching night air, feeling strangely complete. Her journey, which had begun on that lonely road 7 years ago, had led to destinations she could never have imagined. His wheelchair, once a symbol of limitation, had become part of an identity strengthened by adversity. Music, which he had found as a refuge, had become a bridge to the world and to his own heart. And family, a concept he had had to redefine so many times, had revealed itself to be richer and more complex than conventional definitions could contain. That night, as they ate dinner together, celebrating not only the success of the recital, but the extraordinary journey that had brought them together, Sophia realized that true art, whether in music or in life, lay not in perfection, but in the ability to transform dissonances into harmonies, wounds into wisdom, and endings into new beginnings. And as she watched this unlikely family reunion, the biological father who had abandoned her sitting next to the adoptive father who had saved her, the stepmother she had just met, talking animatedly with the mother who had raised her, the little sister who now knew the whole truth but chose to see beauty in the complexity, Sophia knew she had found her own definition of family, of forgiveness, and most of all of love. The road that had once witnessed her abandonment now stretched out before her as a path of possibilities, and she was ready to walk it, one note at a time.